Welcome to the Anime Realm channel. This is my recap for the 2023 anime called Kingdom of Ruin. If you like my recaps, please subscribe. The story begins as we are told that God created humanity, and then he created witches, shared his power with the witches and told them that in his place, they would guide the powerless humans. The witches agreed and swore to dedicate themselves to helping humans in the name of friendship. However, in the present day, things have taken a horrific turn. A scene shows a large group of ungrateful humans preparing to execute a witch as they scream that they don't need witches and they should be eradicated. The witch hopes that they will all die, but it was humans who eliminated them. Elsewhere, our protagonist Adnis, who is a witch's apprentice, complains about how tired his legs are and how it's way too hot, which makes sense since it's a desert. Adnis grows frustrated since the witch he travels with named Chloe isn't listening and interrupts him to tell him to quiet down. Adnis wants her to at least use magic to check their location since it would be a lot cooler than using an old school map. But she calls him an idiot and reminds the boy that magic isn't that cheap. The map lover threatens to leave him behind and gets even more upset when Adnis just uses a device to determine where they are. Chloe hates technology and is furious since she tells them numerous times to not use that weird machine since the people looking for them will use it to find them. Adnis calms her down by explaining that it's not a weird device, it's a smartphone, and he made this one himself, so it can't be used to track them. The technological genius points out that using maps in this day and age is pretty lame, but Chloe is not impressed. Chloe says they're ready to move again, but Adnis has gotten very serious and he asks her why they have to keep running. Chloe explains that it's because she is a witch and attitudes towards witches have changed. Now, living simply is a struggle for witches, and living far from human cities is the best thing. During their journey, Chloe reminds him that they need to find a place that's tolerant towards witches so they can reclaim their peaceful, happy lives. They also need to find a school for him to attend, but our brilliant little technology lover surprisingly explains that school sucks and that he'd rather keep studying under her. Rose inappropriately teases him about liking older women, and the two move on. Adnis can't help but wonder why Chloe isn't frustrated. He hates the Red Empire that they reside in, and the evil little dude desperately wants to eradicate humans using magic. Just then, Adnis senses something approaching, and a group of soldiers reports back to their headquarters that they have spotted a fugitive witch. Adnis fearlessly states that he will handle the human scum, but Chloe stops him and explains that he is far too inexperienced. Chloe starts with some ice magic as the staff appears in her hand. She freezes while stating that humans never learn and unleashes her spell. Elsewhere, a man just like my accountant apologizes to Emperor Goff. The Emperor with a mustache looks like a masterpiece of grooming and calls him an incompetent fool. But the suit explains that Chloe is a high-ranking witch who uses ice magic. He tries to explain that a single squadron isn't enough to defeat her, but someone's foot comes flying out of nowhere to silence him. The Emperor silences everyone and just instructs them to bring Chloe to him immediately, as he refuses to let her escape. Back to the fight. Chloe's in the coolest pose she can make, and we see that she is exhausted after defeating the hopelessly weak humans. Adnis isn't saying anything though and is furious that Chloe always holds him back. He exclaims that he can use spells and wonders why she won't let him fight. Adnis thinks he could have handled those measly wimps easily. He doesn't see the point in studying magic if she won't let him use it. This crazy kid then interrupts her by bringing a massive sword straight down from the heavens and asking her how could a student of hers be considered inexperienced. Chloe simply tells him that if he whines too much, she will get mad. However, Adnis has concluded and assumes that she must be treating him this way because he is a human like them. He believes that she doesn't want him to kill his kind because she is too nice. Because of this, no matter how much they mistreat her, she suppresses her emotions so he won't fight humans, and she never allows him to fight them. Adnis is at his limit, though, and he can't stand not being able to protect her anymore. He tries to express his feelings, but she stops him and just tells him that she feels the same way as they embrace. One of the humans turned into ice cream sticks has a device that confirms their location. Just then, our duo begins to float, and Chloe is shocked to realize that humans must have completed something. She points out that not even witches can achieve long-distance physical travel, but that seems to be what's happening. The ever-heroic Adnis tells her that things will be okay and he will always be by her side. A look into space shows some pretty out-of-place technology. It's a space station. The people aboard explain that the transfer is so far a success. The drop-off coordinates are set, and a transfer countdown begins. Back on Earth, Emperor Goth gives a speech. He removes his crown so the peasant people can relate to him more, and he starts by saying that he's speaking to them not as their emperor, but as human being. The Emperor, sporting the coolest mustache around, points out that mankind has always been protected by magic. Whenever natural disasters or plagues occurred, they depended on witches, expressed their gratitude for them, revered them, and feared them due to their power exceeding human knowledge, known as magic. Emperor Goth believes this to be unjust. He states that humans are not just weaklings who must bow to the whims of the witches and beg for their assistance. Goth, he tells them to look at the creations of humanity. Their countless airships fly through the sky, and their metropolis fears no storm. The automatic trains driving through their cities will open up new frontiers, and in their hands, they hold the fruit of their wisdom, the smartphone, a device that can be used to play sweet games and watch handicap videos. He tells them that humans are not weak. Even without magic, they can mold the natural world and control it with their strength. Goth, with smooth talk so good he could sell ketchup as tomato smoothies, tells his people that it is time to eliminate the witches and show the world that they are the strongest. Some random girl compliments the genocidal maniac on his fantastic murder speech, and he states that the world will surely move in a positive direction once the witches are eradicated. Just then, a beam of light strikes the stage, and we see that Adonis and Chloe have been teleported. The two can't believe the terrible things that the crowd is saying to them and become angry when they see that it was Emperor Goth who brought them. The ever-valiant Adonis instantly springs to action, telling Chloe to run so he can buy her time to escape. He gets stopped pretty fast, though, and Goth is disgusted to see that this human boy has been raised by a witch. We then see that Chloe isn't just some annoying interrupter, as she becomes enraged and tells Goth that if he values the lives of his people, then he needs to let go of her young apprentice. Not one to make empty threats, Chloe initiates a powerful magic spell and creates a magic circle of ice. Something big is coming, so Chloe speaks to the citizens. She states that they are humans just like Adonis, so she doesn't want to fight them. If she were to destroy them, Adonis wouldn't have a home to return to. This is why she has allowed them to live up to this point. However, they are proving themselves to be too dangerous, and she begins her spell. Unfortunately, she's utterly shocked to see that her magic just stops. Goth, with his impeccable mustache, explains that she cannot understand the power of science humans have acquired. We see the magic photon suppression device that nullified her magic, and the humans in the crowd have a good laugh like they did something themselves. As if proud, Goth expresses his doubt that she even considered that the human she once helped would someday chase her down. Adonis, never willing to give up as our brave protagonist, tries to use his pen, but can't understand why his magic isn't working. Goth explains that it's time for witches like Chloe to expose themselves to the world, and slaps her hard in the face. As if that weren't bad enough, she is also completely exposed, and the crowd begins to take pictures. Adonis is furious to see his teacher humiliated and vows to kill them all, but is once again stopped. He keeps trying, but all he can do is tell her to wait for him, and soon he will be right by her side again. Goth has had enough of the boy and orders that the boy be shot in the head. Chloe completely changes her rebellious attitude to save our son and bows to the Emperor. She takes all the blame and explains that the boy has nothing to do with it, he is like them, a human. She lies by saying that she kidnapped him and raised him as her slave, a poor miserable human boy. Completely out of character, Chloe begs and pleads that the Emperor has mercy on him, and she doesn't care what happens to her. Adonis is in absolute disbelief when she offers to be a slave. With frenzied fury, he writes wildly on the ground, every ounce of sanity seemingly abandoned, as he swears to kill them all. Goth, uninterested in her offer, points a gun at her. Chloe, realizing what is about to happen, calmly calls out to Adonis and thanks him for everything. We get a quick glimpse into when they first met. Chloe took in the homeless, angry little kid, and now she's glad that they met. She begins to say the words "I love you," but before she can finish, the cold-blooded Goth ends her life. Adonis, frozen in horror, is mortified, and before her body can even hit the ground, Goth's soldiers follow up his shot with a barrage of bullets. Adonis begs for them to stop, but they are relentless. Their life together flashes before Chloe's eyes, and she thinks about how she was truly happy. The crowd cheers with utter jubilation, and Goth finalizes her death by having her head cut off. We then learn the rest of what Goth said when he shared his power with the witches. He told the witches that the humans may fear them as they are timid. He hoped that they would become friends and bring eternal peace to the world. However, should they hate one another and fight, may the darkness of chaos envelop the world. With Chloe dead and Adonis consumed by a raging fury, the real story can now begin. We move forward 10 years. A couple of prisoners are arguing over some food, but a girl named Daroka offers them her food so they can stop. One of the rude girls takes her offer, but Daroka's friend Anna points out that Daroka gave someone else her food earlier. Daroka keeps her spirits up, though, and shows how much energy she still has with a strange dance. Anna points out that no matter how much technology advances, people keep fighting among themselves, and the wars never stop. She remembers being told that humanity would be happy once the witches were gone, but that hasn't come true yet. Daroka, always staying positive, lightens the mood with some expert-level puppeteering. Daroka uses the puppet to assure Anna that everything will be okay. Just then, soldiers arrive to call prisoner number 218. Others gossip about how those who get called never come back, and Anna is terrified when she realizes that she is number 218. The soldiers demand that the prisoners speak up, and Daroka fearlessly steps forward. Daroka is taken away, leaving Anna in complete disbelief since that was her number. We see that Daroka left her puppets behind with their numbers. Daroka is taken to a place where she finds that she will serve as a slave. She sees what happens to those who refuse, and the cheerfully dressed ruler explains that she needs to serve the empire just like everyone else. He states that running the prison costs money, taxpayers' money, and the blood tax of the empire's people. He asks her who brought about the gear expansion and the explosive rise of human civilization, who used their scientific and military might to defeat the witches and seize dignity for humanity. He answers his question by stating that it was them, the Rhea Empire. He is sure that she will fetch a good price and take a selfie with her, but instantly regrets it when she bites his finger. Daroka attempts an escape and tries to open all the cells using the warden's phone. Unfortunately, their technology has voice authentication. She tries to ask it nicely, but that doesn't work, so she does her best impression of the warden. Luckily, her feminine voice is pretty similar to the flamboyant warden, and it works. She tells all the prisoners to run, and with that, chaos ensues. Amidst the chaos, Daroka heads to a very special cell made especially for a very powerful person. Daroka is taken down, but the soldiers point out that all cells are opening, and they're in very big trouble. Just then, alarms begin to sound, and the chamber begins to open. The guards panic with fear, and we see that it's the overwhelmingly angry Adonis. The guards start to panic, seeing him get free, but he instantly jumps onto one of them. It eliminates it easily. The other guard tries to shoot him, but he parries it and shoots the guard with his gun. Daroka gets scared as he approaches her. He shoots her, but he ends up setting her free. The guards panic as they try to control the situation, and we see that at the National Security Bureau, or NSB, Director Yam receives a report about this. He orders his executive to deal with it, and he happily agrees, but Yamato's sister Yuki isn't happy with his carefree attitude, reminding him that they are there to maintain order in the empire. But Yamato tells her it's okay, reminding her that there's a reason that he's an executive. Back at the prison, the warden panics as he finds that Adonis has gotten free. He wonders how Daroka could have opened his chamber because even he shouldn't have had the clearance to free him. And to make matters worse, it seems that Adonis's magic pen has also gone missing. We see Adonis outside, and he tries out his magic for the first time in 10 years. He shoots his gun, summoning an enormous bullet that crashes into a building, and he prepares to wipe out everyone in the city. We see Eek cleaning things up at the prison, but he reports that he didn't find Adonis. He hears about the building that was attacked, so he prepares Cares to head over, but he takes out the warden first. We see Daroka also manages to get out, but seeing the damage Adonis has caused, she thinks it's her fault that she set him free. As he walks through the street, Adonis thinks that his teacher does not want to take revenge on humans, but he just can't let go of what happened. He summons a giant robot, and he starts going on a rampage. We see an officer receiving a report about this, but he just thinks he's being pranked. A car suddenly crashes through the wall, and the driver is shocked by what he sees. The officer thinks the man is high, but when he looks outside, he sees what's going on. We see Yamato and Yuki observing from a distance, and they confirm that Adonis is behind the attack. Yamato thinks they can just use their magic suppression device to stop him, but he's reminded that it hasn't been used in 10 years, so they aren't sure if it will still work properly. A state of emergency is declared, and we see tanks being deployed. They fire at the giant, but their shots seem to just miss. Adonis retaliates by smashing a building and throwing debris at his enemies. We learn that for a human to use magic, writing-style summoning magic is the only way. It works by understanding and systemizing the mechanisms of magic, and even while he was sealed away, he was able to practice it in his mind, so it didn't matter that he was sealed away for 10 years. He thinks that all the citizens who benefited from his master's death are just as guilty, so he plans on wiping out the whole country. He summons 2 guns, and he starts mowing everyone down. But despite getting his revenge, it doesn't feel quite right, and he starts to cry. Eek spots that Adonis is in the giant's hand, and the NSB deploys its jets. They bomb him with missiles, and we see the civilians getting caught in the crossfire. A massive building is about to fall onto a child, but Doroka saves him just in time. She apologizes for everything that's happened, but she promises to make things right. Meanwhile, at the palace, we see the emperor in bed, and we learn he is suffering from an incurable illness. He wonders if it's a curse from God, but he doesn't repent for what he did, thinking that getting rid of the witches was a necessary thing to do for the sake of the human race. We see Adonis engaging against the soldiers on the ground, but his magic is just too strong, and he wipes them all out. He is about to finish off the last soldier, but Doro suddenly begs him to stop, thinking he has done enough, saying she doesn't want to see any more innocent people die. But this just pisses him off. He thinks about how he let her go because she was from a different country, but thinks he should just exterminate everyone. Doroka tells him that Chloe wouldn't want to see him like this, but he tells her not to use his master's name. He wonders if the humans are just using her as a distraction, remembering how they like to fight dirty. But Doro reveals that she's a witch. Adonis doesn't believe that witches still exist, but she swears that it's true, saying some of them survived. Adonis wonders why they didn't try to save his master, but she says they were desperate to get away themselves. Adonis doesn't want to hear her apologies, but she mentions that they can bring her back to life. Adonis finds this hard to believe, but Doroka says she infiltrated the country to find him, so that they could use his memories to bring his master back. Adonis prepares to finish her off, but looking at her face, he's reminded of his master. He breaks down in tears, and Doroka tells him he's no longer alone. But she suddenly gets shot. Ikaut is shocked that Adonis was not injured. We see a little bit of Doroka's past, where the humans had begun to kill all the witches and burn their houses down. But she can't understand why any of this is happening. Another witch named Mia comes up behind her, and Doroka asks her why all of this is happening. So far, they had gotten along well with the humans. They even recently went into the city to cure a man's illness, and this is how the humans decide to repay them. Doroka suggests they use magic to stop the violence for now, but Mia tells her that they already tried. But that machine that the humans created is suppressing their magic. They don't know exactly what that thing is or how it is suppressing their magic, but Mia believes that Madame Ophelia might know something about it, so she wants Doroka to go and deliver the message. Doroka understands, but asks why Mia can't come with her. But with a sword in her back, it is already too late for her. She instructs her to follow the Star of Revelation, which will take her to Ophelia's mansion and give her some motivation that she can do it with a puppet. With tears in her eyes, Dua turns around and starts running away. While behind her, the humans have found Mia and surround her before killing her. And now Doroka also lies on the floor and dies. Adonis holds her in his arms and begs her not to die on him, before she is told how to bring Chloe back to life. But before he can get the information that he needs, several more shots are fired into Doroka, and she's now definitely dead. The shots were fired by the soldiers that just arrived, and Adonis is left agonizing over the fact that even if he knows that it is possible to bring Chloe back from the dead, he doesn't know how he is supposed to do that. The soldiers surround Adonis, intending to kill him right here and now, but Adonis warns them not to get cocky, as he surrounds himself with magic. The soldiers see him using his magic, so they all open fire on him. However, none of the shots even come close to hitting him, as his magic stops and redirects the bullets, hitting the soldiers instead. Until there is one guy with the look of, "I should have called in the doctor today." Adonis is slowly walking towards the last guy, while Ikaut aims with his sniper from a rooftop. Once the shot is lined up, he fires his anti-armor sniper rifle directly at Adonis, causing a huge dust cloud to form. However, Adonis is still perfectly unharmed and has stopped the ridiculously large bullet using his magic to turn it into a 9mm round and fire it back at Ikaut. Meanwhile, Ikaut is too stunned by the missile approaching him, so he just sits there as his upper body is blown away. Now that Ikaut is taken care of, Adonis focuses his attention back on the last soldier and declares that he will wipe out all humans and make them feel Chloe's despair. Yamato knows there is no way that they will be able to beat someone who knows how to use magic. So, if he rests their fate on Yuki being able to get the magic suppressing machine going again. Yuki is down in the basement with the machine and is so excited that she finally gets a chance to be useful to her brother, that she forgets she is meant to be a commander here for a few moments, before she can try to turn the on, however. The Science Bureau arrives and Theta tells them they can't let her operate the machine. Yuki finds the phrasing of that statement to be a little off-putting, so she reaches for her gun and asks for an explanation from her. The Yamato gets a call from Phone Yuki. He asks her why they haven't turned on the magic photon suppression device yet. but Theta explains to him that they can't do that for a very good reason. Human dysfunction disease, a disease that all the soldiers who took part in the witch hunt 10 years ago. So basically, the machine gives people cancer. It kills the cells of all the humans around it. And since all the witches that maintain an environment where the harmful rays could be cleansed are gone, now the situation is different. If they turn that machine on, it could lead to the end of humanity. And to this point, no one knew of this because the Science Bureau was ordered to hide their findings. All the people who stood before this device and fought the witches are either dead or are now dying of the disease, including the Emperor. So, knowing that turning a machine on will mean certain death for all the humans here, what are they going to do against Adonis, who possesses magic? Their weapons have proved to be ineffective, and nothing they have, aside from this machine, can help them fight the witches. So even with the cancer warning, Yuki still chooses to run forward to turn the machine on, because she sees no other way to stop Adonis. The director yells for her to stop, but since she doesn't stop, she orders all of her crew to fall back to avoid any radiation, and then chases after Yuki to stop her from doing anything stupid. Yuki gets to the front of the machine terminal and begins the activation sequence, while Theta still warns her against it. As she presses the button to turn the suppression device on, Adonis outside suddenly feels his magic fading, and his quill gets knocked out of his hand. He is in a state of shock, because, without the quill, he is just a regular tank of a human being. Yamato sees this happen and questions what happened and if Yuki happened to turn on the machine and what that would mean for her health. However, Theta on the other end of the line, while holding an unconscious and bloody Yuki, managed to turn off the machine immediately after Yuki turned it on, so radiation exposure was minimal. But due to their proximity, they were both heavily affected, and it means that at least both she and Yuki now have cancer. She tells Yamato that since the machine was already turned on, there's no going back now, and he needs to take advantage of the opportunity that this provided and finish Adonis off here and now. His job is to eliminate the threat to the kingdom before him, so he orders all the soldiers on the ground to charge Adonis, while he runs backward to retrieve his quill. And they must have run out of bullets or something because they could just shoot him right now. But before he can grab the quill, a soldier runs up to him, and at the same time, a building crumbles to the ground before them, kicking up a huge dust cloud and forcing the other soldiers to retreat for now. The soldier in front of Adonis unsheaths her gun's thermoblade, raising it to strike Adonis, who still doesn't have his quill in hand. He realizes, damn, maybe I will die like this, but at least I get to see Chloe again in the afterlife. The soldier then brings the sword down and beheads Adonis. Then with the other soldiers still wondering what is going on there, the soldier who beheaded Adonis walks out with Adonis's head in tow, proudly exclaiming that she did it, leading all the other soldiers to celebrate their victory. The people in the control room also begin to celebrate. But joke's on them, in 2 to 3 years, they'll all have cancer. Yamada is breathing hard, as he believes the trouble is finally behind them and congratulates the soldiers for defeating Adonis, but also tells them that there is no time to relax. They must retrieve the body of Adonis to avoid any reanimation shenanigans, and to evaluate the damage the city has sustained through this whole attack. He also instructs the soldiers to join the rescue teams to help save all the civilians who were caught in the crossfire of the battle. He gets a look at the woman who managed to behead Adonis on the monitor and says she looks young for someone in the army. His assistant informs him that it looks like she's one of the recruits to the armored foot soldiers, and he can look up her information if he wants to know more about her. But Yamato says there is no need as they have more important matters to attend to. He orders his assistant to go down to the basement and check on the physical condition of both Yuki and Theta, who are both unconscious and bleeding badly from all the radiation exposure. After the victory over Adonis has been confirmed, the Emperor gives another one of his speeches to the people, telling them that magic remained in the world and the boy whom they took from the witch's hands 10 years ago had been unleashed upon them once more. He decided to attack them after they had killed his only friend and imprisoned him for 10 years. After, despite being human himself, he held no sense of mercy towards his kind, the humans. I wonder why. Even after 10 years, they uncover the mystery behind how Adonis was able to use magic as a human, and since they kept him alive all along trying to figure that out. All of this happened as a result. However, the people do not need to fear, for Rydia has achieved the pinnacle of technological advancement. It has finally eradicated magic from the world. This, he says while hooked up to his cancer life support, which is a direct result of said technology that eradicated the witches. A student in a school is watching his speech on YouTube, and the teacher points out to the class that they lost a few of their classmates to the previous incident. But national mock exams are coming up, so they need to move past it and continue studying for it. After class, one girl is approached by another who claims to have seen her do something terrible during the incident. The first girl, Ali, claims it was a perfectly natural reaction to the situation and she did nothing wrong there. So the other girl leaves her alone for now. Later that day, Ali goes to visit the memorial for all the people who died in the incident and apologizes to her boyfriend Takuma. He was pinned under a rock and asked her for help. But just as she was about to try to save him, she noticed a rock falling towards them and left him there to die. She is sure that he must hate her now and that she is a terrible person. She left her boyfriend to die, and even worse, she started singing for Adonis, who is the same guy that caused her boyfriend's death. However, a guy pops up behind her and sees her staring at Adonis's pictures, startling her. She realizes that the guy is part of the government, and this could be pretty bad for her, so she leaves immediately. But Oz is not going to let high school girls get away with singing for serial killers, so he reports her for treason, for which she will later likely be executed or imprisoned. He also gets some news from his analysis girl back at headquarters, who hates working for this dude. She informs him that the body of Adonis that they have is a fake, and we see the real Adonis wake up elsewhere. Adonis is surrounded by witches and is held down to a table because his body is reacting violently to the transportation they used to bring him here. They were worried something like this might happen, but they have no idea what to do about it now. This is where Madame Ophelia steps in and says she will return him to his senses by stimulating his brain, causing him to see memories of Chloe. He continues to struggle until he finally remembers what happened back in the kingdom. The body that was killed by the soldier was a fake, and that soldier turned out to be a witch named Anna. She was sent to infiltrate the kingdom alongside Daroka, and just use duplication magic to fake Adonis's death, so Ophelia could transport him up to the witch's base. She gives the signal, and Adonis is wrapped in a ball, floating into the sky, bringing us to this moment, where Adonis is confused about the situation. Ophelia thanks him for all the fighting he has done for them. He finally has a moment of clarity, and realizes that this must be the nation of witches. He's wheeled around in a wheelchair, because he is still unable to walk, and he looks around the nation of witches, which is a utopia for them, and talks to a few people who had met Chloe in the past, and had a lot of good things to say about her. He is later brought to Ophelia, where he attempts to get out of the wheelchair, saying he can walk by himself now. But Ophelia tells him to stay in his chair, since this place should not feel the influence of a human. Adonis asks her if she knows Chloe, but Ophelia says there isn't a single person in the nation of witches who doesn't know Chloe. Despite her use of ice magic, she always radiated warmth, and was beloved by all the witches. But then she was eventually cast out of the nation. Adonis corrects her and points out that she was the one who kicked Chloe out of the nation of witches, because she taught magic to a human, him. Ophelia doesn't deny it, but says magic is like the soul of the witches, a power given to them by God to guide the humans, and thus they believe that something like that should never be taught to a human. They all begged Chloe to abandon her human student and return to the nation, but she would only smile and apologize for not listening to them. Ophelia smiles a little, remembering the past, and tells Adonis he can have his quill back. After seeing it, his eyes widen, and he leaps out of his wheelchair, pushing another witch out of the way to get to it. But to be honest, she wasn't blocking his path, so that was pretty unnecessary. It's a magic-imbued phoenix feather with a red dragon eye ornament, which allows a human to use magic. But the reason he is so obsessed with the quill is not because of the power he has with it, but rather because it was a gift from Chloe. He asks Ophelia if she is really serious about being able to bring Chloe back to life, and she says witches do not lie. This brings relief to Adonis, knowing that he will be able to see his beloved Chloe once more. But as he looks upwards, he doesn't see the moon. He sees the earth and asks where they are right now after the witch hunt 10 years ago. All the remaining witches collectively went to the moon, where the humans could not reach them, at least until they invented rockets. The advent of science brought out the true nature of humans. They seek to control everything around them, and what they cannot control, they aim to get rid of it altogether. As Adonis sits on the surface of the moon in a spacesuit, Ophelia stands there, just regarding the cosmos. She shows him the gravestones of all the witches who were killed in the kingdom's conquest for power. The king of the humans believed that humans would only be corrupted by the power of witches and would oppress them forever. But then, after he finally got rid of the witches, he oppressed the rest of the humans in the world. Ophelia then takes Adonis to see Mido, the tree that gives birth to the witches. Ophelia asks Adonis if he has ever seen one, but this is his first time seeing it in person since Chloe did like to talk about her origins. Witches are unisex beings and do not have mating pairs, rather they receive life from these trees. However, this is the last surviving Mido tree that can give birth to the witches since the humans burned down all the other ones, and this was the only one they were able to transport to the surface of the moon. Adonis notices a pod that contains a witch who looks an awful lot like Chloe, but Ophelia tells him that it isn't Chloe, just a witch waiting to be born. But to turn her into Chloe, his strength and magic are needed. Magic is the act of giving an individual's thoughts a physical form in the real world, and the written style summoning magic that Adonis uses can be used to give form to any thoughts. Memories are the very essence of life itself, so if he were able to use his magic to seal his memories of Chloe and the unborn witch, then she could be resurrected. So, as it stands, he and his connection to Chloe are the key to bringing her back to life, and as such, he should let them know when he is ready to begin the ceremony. Adonis looks out the tree and still can't believe he will be able to revive Chloe, but then the witch that had pretended to be a soldier back on Earth, Anna, approaches him angry that Daroka died for him. But that's not his fault. It was Anna's idea from the beginning, and he takes no responsibility for casualties. She calls him selfish and asks why they had risked their lives to save him. However, Adonis knows exactly why they did so, and that is because they plan to use Chloe for their purposes. Anna is shocked that Adonis has such information, but back on Earth, before she died, Daroka told him that the witches plan to use Chloe's power, so they must flee the nation after she is revived. He also points out that the witches can survive the harsh conditions of space without any protection. So if they truly came here to just live in peace away from the humans, then they wouldn't have needed to create such an elaborate space station that can support human life. The real purpose of it is to act as a cage for humans. They plan to kidnap human slaves and children to train them on how to use the written style of summoning magic to fight a war against humans. Since the number of witches is low, they need to recover and get soldiers somehow. And since a draft isn't going to cut it, they are going to use Chloe and a little child labor to bolster their offense. They need Chloe to train them, because she's the only one who can make those magic quills that allow humans to use magic. So it is crucial to their plan. He's got them all figured out, so she can't go gaslighting him into thinking he is a selfish one here. He walks away, but Anna tells him to wait and still begs him to help them regardless of what he knows. Adonis clears one thing up. He is still going to revive Chloe. That much hasn't changed, and he doesn't care what happens to either the witches or the humans, so they can build a war for all he cares. The only one he truly cares for is Chloe, so if they revive her and she chooses to reject their plans, then that is what he will do. Later, they begin the ceremony to revive Chloe, and Adonis steps forward to begin, hitting the most Power Ranger type poses for someone who is just riding in the air. His memories of Chloe are being transferred into the witch pod, and Adonis starts to have flashbacks to the time he spent with Chloe. One moment, they were both on a roof together gazing at the stars, and Adonis was showing off his knowledge of memorizing all the constellations, including the Adonis constellation, which she named after him. But she had forgotten about that and could barely remember where it was. Another moment where Chloe is taking a bath, and Adonis has to clean up after her, and she leaves her clothes everywhere. But while walking past the curtains, he noticed that she was covered in bruises all over. But she just tells him it's impolite to watch her in the bath. He retorts that he was only watching to make sure she was okay and goes to leave. But before he goes, Chloe breaks down in tears and thanks him for being with her because she wouldn't be able to live in this world alone. And it is the same feeling for him. As he completes the spell, he tells Chloe he loves her, and the pod opens to reveal the witch. However, she looks a lot more like Daroka than Chloe. We see Adonis crying as he tells Chloe that he loves her, and because he loves her, he can't force her to go through the suffering that she has already experienced again. So, for that reason, he will not bring her back to life. There is no place for her here. There are the humans who want to kill her, and the witches who want to use her as a weapon. So, to spare her a terrible fate, he uses his magic to override the spell and have it resurrect Daroka, and he catches her, saying he doesn't want to leave his debt to her unpaid. Daroka is confused by the fact that she is still alive. She can clearly remember getting her back blown out back on Earth. So, how did she end up in the Witch Nation? And she is also naked. She realizes she is nude and gets embarrassed that Adonis is holding her, so she quickly backsteps. He tells her to just put on a jacket and get up, while the other witches are visibly growing angrier by the minute. Ophelia, with an angry smile, questions how he could have done such a thing after they went through all this effort to bring Chloe back. They brought him here, they healed his wounds, and they even guaranteed his safety, yet he decided to ruin their plans. The other witches then start saying things like typical behavior for a human, that he never really loved Chloe, or that Daroka must have convinced him to revive her somehow. We get a glimpse into Ophelia's true personality as she looks at Daroka with the eyes of, "I'm going to beat you with my belt." Adonis tells them to shut their mouths, as the choice not to revive Chloe was his alone. Ophelia doesn't like the tone that Adonis is talking to her with, so she tells him he is just a mere human, and could never compare to the power of the witches. She raises her hand, and is about to turn him into a frog or something, but then several lights appear around her, and her menacing demeanor fades as she panics and questions what Adonis did. Adonis says he didn't do anything, he just happens to be a long-term prisoner, and pulls out a tracking chip that was implanted in his body. Soon after, an explosion occurs, and remember that the Mio tree is the only way witches can reproduce. Yeah, that shit's on fire, and the culprit for this was Yamato, who tracked Adonis here with the chip that they had on him. He tells Adonis and the other witches that they are all trapped here and will be exterminated like the rats that they are. But Adonis tells him not to be so rude, when he was the one who invited him here to his final resting place. One witch yells out to Ophelia that she will take care of the burning Mito tree, and starts using her water magic to put the fire out. But what did you think was going to happen if you yelled out your intention to save the tree, while the soldiers were standing right there? She loses her head, and with her death, the tree continues to burn, and Ophelia starts to lose her cool. So she tells everyone to get ready for a battle with the humans, and they all transform into their warrior gear. Meanwhile, Adonis is faced with Yamato, and as he is casting his spell, he gets in to try to kill him quickly and stop his attack. But Adonis was never going for an attack and rather cast a spell to steal Yamato's gun. Yamato is knocked to the ground, as Adonis continues to empty the entire gun into him, but Daroka grabs onto his shirt and stops him. On the other side, the witches are engaging in battle with the soldiers, and as you could expect with them still having access to their magic, they are destroying the soldiers. Ophelia then uses her natural law magic to make all the soldiers float, as they try to fire bullets at her. They all go in slow motion and miss their target. She gathers all the soldiers in one place and squishes them, covering the battlefield in blood. And she is smiling as she says humans are feeble, so they should be able to claim victory here. But as she looks over, she sees a second squad has been transported up, and they have killed some of the witches. She now realizes that they are playing a battle royale in endless mode, and the kingdom will just keep sending soldiers up until they run out of energy. Back on Earth, they are getting a live video feed of everything that is happening on the moon, and they ask why there are still so many witches alive, when they were supposed to have wiped them all out 10 years ago. We see Dr. Theta watching the situation on life support due to the cancer stage she now has from the magic suppression machine. She is reporting on a reason why she failed to find out about the witches. She explains that during the witch hunt 10 years ago, they had used capsules to eat, but those same capsules were likely used by the witches to escape Earth and make their way to the moon. And once they were there, they built the station and used magic to hide themselves from their scanners. The guy is angry that the witches are still alive and blames Theta for not figuring it out despite the huge annual budget they receive, saying her failure will cost her life. But I mean, she already has cancer, so I don't think her life can get much worse. One other person at the table, Shirasagi, tells them to calm down so they can handle the situation first, as they can handle the after they are done with the witches once and for all. We see a flashback of Yamato looking over at Yuki, who now has stage 5 cancer from that machine. He talks about how she was always by his side wherever he went. When he entered the National Security Bureau, so did she, and when he became a director, she became his vice director, making her the youngest person to ever become one. He loved his sister dearly. He blames Adonis for making her sacrifice herself to stop him, and he will make sure Adonis suffers for what happened to her. He tells his battle suit to set output to 500% and gets up. Though severely wounded, his speed has gone up dramatically, and he steps in front of Adonis before punching him across the field. Daroka runs over to him, but Adonis tells her to keep her eyes on the man with the intent to kill him. Yamato yells out in anger about how he will make Adonis pay for siding with the witches, and prepares to draw his sword and slash. He thinks about how after he is done with this battle, he can retire and get a quiet place with Yuki to live out the rest of their lives together. He draws his sword and releases the anti-witch slash, which stretches across the field. The attack is so powerful that literally all the witches in the area are killed in an instant. Adonis dodges a sword strike, but Ophelia is also gone, and even Daroka, who has only been back to life for all of 10 minutes, is gone. But Anna used the same magic that was used to save Adnis when he was nearly killed by the military to save her, but she couldn't save herself. Though headquarters asks for a report on the situation at the witch base, since they've lost video feed and cannot tell what is happening on the base. The green grass has been painted red, and Dukkha is left crying over her friend's dead body. Adnis and Yamato are the only two left standing and are still in combat. Yamato reports to headquarters, saying he has successfully neutralized the witches, leaving the final task to kill Adnis. Adnis throws his coat away and prepares to throw hands, as he summons metal armor on himself with magic. He then attacks Yamato with a punch and jumps upward to evade the incoming slash from him. As he lands, he enchants his fist, allowing him to break through Yamato's sword and punch through his chest. However, Yamato still doesn't lose and uses the suit to bind Adnis, while he uses the regenerated blade to slash him. The witches watch in horror as they sit in a pool of their sister's blood. Ophelia tells them not to give up hope while she's split in two, but they have nothing to hope for since the Mido tree has been burnt to a crisp. And that means that no witches will ever be born or resurrected again. One tries to rally them, saying they can't afford to lose any more of their numbers, and should back up Adnis to help him beat Yamato, but she gets shot in the back as the third squad of soldiers arrives. Yamato sticks his sword to the ground and does something that causes a tornado to appear, and push Adnis back, giving him enough of an opening to stab him. But Adnis also had a trick up his sleeve, and brought down that huge sword, cutting off the arm of Yamato. The damage is extensive, but the suit can stop the bleeding, and Yamato proclaims Adnis to be too dangerous to be left alive, and for that reason, he must die here among the witches, while raising his sword to kill the injured Adnis. Adnis has no fear, but Daroka shouts for everything to stop. Yamato is in disbelief as he can't move his own body, and Adnis is impressed as it's clear that Daroka has a wide range of spells she has just cast. The love spell affects all the soldiers as well. She introduced herself, and Yamato gave his name, but it was completely against his own will. His mouth opens on its own, so he realizes that the spell he is under is incredibly dangerous. The other witches watch and begin to think that Daroka might be able to turn things around with her special magic. Yamato demands that she remove her spell, but she refuses. Our revenge-seeking protagonist is thirsty for blood and tells Daroka to end Yamato's life by tearing out his throat. Yamato's rage turns to shock when Daroka simply extends her hand and pleads for all the fighting to stop. She wants him to shake her hand and promise that he won't attack Adnis or the other witches. If he just makes this promise, then she will free everyone from the spell. Our jaded protagonist becomes furious, though, as he reminds her that they killed Anna. His revenge-filled brain can't comprehend what she is doing, and he calls her crazy for even thinking of letting the humans leave alive. The other witches agree as he points out all the lives they have taken, and he warns her that the humans will likely take her life if she doesn't end them first. Yamato proves to be a psycho, as well as he says that Adnis is right, and somehow manages to attack Daroka. He tells her to know her place and explains that the humans will use their science to exterminate them all. He throws punches down at her, while telling her how naive she was to think that they could have peace between them. To humans, witches are that bring terror and chaos, and their mere existence is destroying the world. Yamato releases all his anger as he points out how much harm the witch's apprentice has done to humanity. He has taken countless innocent lives. Yamato wants the witches to finally just accept their extermination, and we see that the soldiers can move again. Yamato thinks about how Yuki wouldn't be in the condition she is in if it wasn't for the witches, and he beats Daroka relentlessly. Daroka somehow manages to speak and tells him that the humans have taken countless lives as well, not just the massacre they just did right now, but the extermination of witches 10 years ago. Daroka understands that the humans feel like they don't need the witches anymore because they have their precious science, but she can't understand why they feel the need to exterminate the witches. She points out that humans and witches used to be friends and once again pleads that they put an end to the fighting. Daroka would like for him to start by ordering the retreat of his men, but Yamato is still filled with rage. She casts her love spell on him again, and Yamato begins to feel strange. He shows his intense resolve though, as he reminds himself who he is, and proclaims that he won't be beaten by some magic spell. He tries hard to break the spell, but he then imagines himself as a child hugging Daroka, and this dude is tamed by her spell. With loving eyes, Yamato tells Daroka that he will obey her, but he just ends up with a blade through his skull. Of course, it was our rage-filled protagonist, and he explains that revenge is all he has. Doroka can't believe what she just saw, and is furious with Adonis. He is completely single-minded though, as he realizes how strong Doroka's love spell is, and he tells her that they will use her magic to destroy humanity. At the royal palace, the king is told that their strike force is still fighting, and they are not sure if the witches will be defeated as they are putting up quite a fight. Unfortunately, their communication with headquarters is poor, so they aren't sure of all the details. The king once again asks if they will defeat the witches, so the terrified soldier just tells him that he believes their victory is certain. The queen wonders if the witch's apprentice is there as well, and they are both glad to hear that he is. The king graces us with his impeccable mustache, and demands that his soldiers burn the witches along with the entire moon if they have to. This genocidal maniac rejoices as he sees that the end is nearing for all the witches and the brats who want revenge against humanity. This guy, who was just giving really convincing speeches just a few episodes ago, is losing his mind now as he laughs like a maniac. He calls the witches losers for running off to the moon, but states that they can never escape. The king wants to be assured by his wife, so he asks her to tell him how incredible he is and asks for her to praise him. He is having his moment now, as he has finally achieved his goal of exterminating the witches, and everyone celebrates. The poor soldier who has had to listen to his psychotic rant thinks about how he had heard that the king's condition was deteriorating, but he had no idea it was this bad. He is then shocked, as the queen holds the king and tells him that everything's going to be okay. The king just acts like a baby sometimes and needs to be praised. She praises him for enduring so much stress for such a long time, and the king just keeps repeating over and over again how much he loves her. We then see why the king is like this, as the queen shockingly uses the love spell on him. She compliments him for finally eliminating the witches, and tells him that he can end his own life now. She has some little boy scouts play a little tune, and she praises the king for walking as if he were a toddler. The king has a jolly old time as he makes his way to the ledge, but the soldier is shocked and wonders what is wrong with the king. King Goth is completely gone at this point, and explains that he has always given the queen what she wanted. He is truly the king of simps, so he will gladly give his own life to make her happy. The king is proud of himself for climbing up to the best spot, but the soldier begs for him to come down. Emperor Goth refuses to be stopped and lists all his accomplishments as a great leader. He made several scientific advancements and made the Rydia Empire the strongest nation in the world. He eradicated the witches, and he did all these things for his beloved queen. Goth is completely under the love spell, as he states that he wishes he could serve his queen forever. Of course, the queen loves to hear this, but she clearly doesn't care a single bit about him and simply tells him to hurry up and jump. Eagerly jumps off the building. The queen removes the spell, and we see that there is no coming back for the king. The soldier who witnessed it all calls for backup since there is a witch in the castle, but the queen says that the king just slipped and fell. She uses her love spell magic on this poor guy, so he corrects himself and reports that the king accidentally fell to his death. Shiro Uzagi, the guy from that meeting with Professor X, has been there the entire time. The queen tells him to speak as he has something on his mind. She wonders if she shouldn't have ended the king's life, but Shirausagi couldn't care less and points out that the puppet was no longer necessary. The queen points out that her spell only works on men. Her kind is too much of a threat against her, so that is why they need to be eliminated. Shiro Uzagi points out that the world can be hers now, but she calls him an idiot, as she doesn't want this world. He should already know what she wants, and she threatens to take his life, just like this poor soldier's, if he doesn't bring her Adonis's real head this time. Shirausagi promises the queen that he won't fail her, but she proclaims that she is no longer a queen. She then reveals her true identity as the witch of the unknown named Dorothea. Her goal is to get someone back, and we see that this person looks like a red-headed version of Adonis. Back on the moon, Doroka rejects Adonis's plan to use her magic to destroy humankind. Adonis is demented, as he still smiles and tells Doroka not to release her spell. He goes after the soldiers who still can't move, and tells them to cry the same way he did when they took Chloe's life. Doroka begs him to stop, but it's far too late, as our protagonist slices through all their troops. Doroka can only watch in horror, but she knows what she must do. She never wanted to have to use her spell on him, but Adonis clearly won't stop. Adonis instantly appears before her and threatens to make her unalive again if she tries to cast her spell on him. Adonis continues his massacre as the soldiers beg for their lives, and Doroka tries to tell him that this won't change anything. Revenge will only give birth to more revenge. Adonis isn't in the mood to be lectured, but Doroka explains that she's just tired of all the fighting. All the death is too sad for her to take. But Adonis is practically the opposite, as he can't stop. He finishes up all the soldiers and finds Yamato to steal his face. Adonis vows to make the humans pay for their extinction and uses a spell to change his voice to Yamato's. We then go back to the present when Adonis, pretending to be Yamato, reports back to headquarters. He explains that the battle was fierce and none of the witches survived. Unfortunately, aside from himself, none of the humans did either. Yamato explains that he will be returning alone, and he tells them to bring him back. But we see that Theta can tell that this thing they are looking at is not Yamato. Some witches who are watching are horrified, and we see that Adonis is using Yamato's face as a mask. He once again commands that they teleport him back, and he promises to bring back the head of the witch's apprentice. Ophelia's upper body is still somehow alive, and she realizes that this is what Adonis planned all along. Adonis tries to take Doroka with him since her spell will be very useful, but she refuses. Doroka must have a death wish as she slaps Adonis and points out how ashamed Chloe would be if she saw what he was doing. Luckily for her, Adonis doesn't go all crazy on her as the transportation has been initiated. Ophelia's heart is still just pumping away, so she bids farewell to Adonis, the infinitely evil child of the wicked humans. She hopes that God will judge him for his crimes, and she apologizes to her fellow witches for failing to reclaim their dignity. Ophelia finally bids farewell to this world and the kingdoms of ruin. Adonis and Doroka are being teleported, and Adonis does something entirely unexpected. He says he is sorry for some reason. Back at headquarters, they prepare for Yamato's return. However, Theta already knows that it's Adonis who will be coming back, and they are ready. She vows to avenge Yamato's death as the teleportation countdown reaches 0, and she commands all the soldiers to open fire. The gunfire stops soon after as nothing was teleported, and it is announced that transfer coordinates were somehow changed. His signal is lost, and Data collapses as her body is falling apart. She realizes that he escaped, and tells the witch's apprentice that he has won this round. Somewhere out in the desert, we find Doroka and Adonis. Adonis tells her to look at a constellation that confirms they are back on the planet's surface. Our boy is covered in blood, but has a huge goal. He declares that the two of them will begin their conquest of the Empire by doing whatever they have to, and they will start small. We then get a glimpse of what happened just before the teleportation. Doroka was begging Adonis to help the witches that were still alive on the moon, but Adonis was too busy using his voice-changing magic to change the teleportation coordinates automatically. Our vengeful protagonist decides that they will attack cities and villages on their way to Rydia. They will also gather information and supplies to prepare themselves. Adonis is thinking way ahead and is ready to move, but Doroka isn't having any of it. She wants to go back to the other witches, but Adonis calls her stupid for thinking that any of the witches on the moon survived. She refuses to believe that they all died and tells them to send her back. He calls her a spoiled child, but Doroka gets snappy with him and wonders if he is talking about himself. She thinks that he is more childish since all he cares about is his revenge. Adonis then uses his memory magic. He shows Doroka how she pleaded for Yamato to take her hand, while promising that he wouldn't hurt them anymore. She can't bear to watch her failure, and Adonis now realizes why Doroka didn't fit in with the other witches. The other witches hated the humans, and only a psychopath like her would want to reconcile with them. Doroka reveals that she always wanted to meet with Adonis one day because she wanted to know what kind of person K.H. chose as her apprentice. Adonis was a man living between two worlds, so she had hoped that he could become a bridge between humans and witches. He was her only hope, but she couldn't be more wrong. It's clear to Adonis just now that she knows nothing about him, and she wonders how far he will go. Humankind will never forgive him, the same way he will never forgive them, so the fighting will never stop. Adonis silences her and states that Chloe's life is more precious than all of humanity. The world that took her from him made a huge mistake and deserves to be destroyed. This pink-haired girl just can't understand his rage and wonders how much he is willing to sacrifice. She blames him for what happened to all the witches on the moon because he summoned the humans there, but he points out that summoning humans was the only way to get them back to Earth. All her friends were just pawns in his plan, and Doroka somehow still can't believe how cold-hearted he is. She becomes really upset, since those witches battled so hard to survive the witch hunts, only to become pawns in his selfish plan. But Adonis silences her again. He can't understand how she can continue to argue for the humans when they took so many of her friends' lives. Adonis accuses her of committing the greatest crime against their lives by not wanting revenge. Doroka still disagrees and states that revenge won't heal any wounds. Adonis doesn't care anymore. He begins to walk away as he states that he has nothing left to lose. Daroka just won't let it go as she tackles him and reminds Adonis that he still has the life that Chloe works so hard to protect. In a world filled with cruelty, Daroka begs that he not let it change him. She isn't even asking him to forgive the humans. Daroka just knows that if he continues seeking revenge, then it will shatter his heart, and he will become more like the people who took Chloe from him. Daroka thinks that he still has plenty to lose, but the two just can't understand each other. Revenge is proof of Adonis's existence and irreplaceable proof that Chloe lived with him. Adonis feels like every last trace of Chloe's existence would simply vanish if he stopped seeking revenge, and that thought terrifies him. Daroka breaks down in tears, and Adonis points out that all she does is cry. They seem to finally understand each other a little bit, but Daroka realizes that Adonis's health is declining rapidly. A bunch of bikers spot them in the distance and wonder if they are a couple that just eloped. The ringleader is called Mr. Punch, and he's left to decide what will be done with them. Sometime later, Adonis wakes up in a strange place. Our boy is getting pretty tired of waking up in places he doesn't recognize and tries to remember what happened. He remembers Daroka asking the bikers for help as he was quickly losing blood and couldn't move. Mr. Punch arrives to welcome him and wonders if the cold look in Adonis's eyes means that he has taken someone's life. This guy doesn't have the slightest clue and simply offers Adonis a drink. Adonis has no interest in drinking sewer water, but Punch explains that it's man's greatest invention. Adonis just wants to know where Daroka is, and Punch explains that she was watching over Adonis until a second ago, when some of the youngsters took her away. Adonis isn't playing any games, so he asks him again where she is. So Punch takes him outside and welcomes him to the wasteland, a place filled with people from developing countries, refugees, and slaves who escaped from Rydia. Everyone left behind by science simply ends up there and becomes a vagrant. Just then, Adonis hears Daroka's voice begging for someone to stop. She is surrounded by men, so Adonis wonders what they are doing to her. Punch explains that they don't get many women in the wastelands, and grossly says that Adonis's girlfriend is good at screaming. Adonis has had enough of these people and instantly rushes to save Daroka. He prepares to annihilate all the scum, but is shocked when he sees that Daroka is just learning to ride a motorcycle. She was begging for someone to stop the motorcycle, but all the guys were just encouraging her to learn. Daroka is glad to see that Adonis is awake, but she faceplants straight into the ground. She is concerned about his injuries, but she looks to be in pretty bad shape herself. Daroka gives Adonis some little figurines and apologizes for not realizing how injured he is. Our boy is just as cold as ever though, and tosses the little things. Punch declares that they will be throwing a party, and has Adonis help prepare as payment for rescuing them. That night, everyone drinks and Daroka serves the drinks, so an old dude tries to get smooth with her, but she leaves him in the dust. Adonis isn't in the partying mood, which makes Daroka a bit sad, so some guys wonder if she's in the middle of a fight with their boyfriend. She tries to clear things up about them not being together, but no one believes her. They want to know what their story is, so Daroka says they travel the world. They all have a good laugh, as they can't believe they would come to visit the wastelands, but they all think that she's a nice girl. Just then, the guys shockingly begin collapsing. Daroka has no clue what is happening, but Adonis calls them all idiots for not being more careful with what they put in their mouths. Daroka fears the worst, as she questions if Adonis has poisoned them, but he hasn't. He simply used his magic to change their alcohol's formula into a tranquilizer. Daroka is just glad that everyone is still alive, but Adonis says that won't be for long as he finds a gun. Daroka begs him to stop and points out that they have all been so kind to them. They rescued them from the desert and even gave them medical aid. Adonis couldn't care less, but Daroka points out that if it wasn't for them, his life would have ended in the desert. Adonis explains that he isn't going to end their lives, but only because vagrants like them are not worth killing. Adonis then shocks her when he reveals that he no longer needs her. She wants an explanation, so he says that unlike her, he can't laugh after losing someone important to him. He can't even imagine relaxing and joking around. Adonis has determined that they are fundamentally incompatible. Daroka explains her behavior by pointing out that bad things will happen if humans find out who they are. They have to blend in with them because she can't let them suspect that she is a witch. Daroka laughs to keep up appearances, but there's no way she could just be fine after what happened. Adonis just silences her once again to tell her never to end up like him, and he leaves. The next morning, Mr. Punch wonders if Daroka's boyfriend left. She corrects him about Adonis not being her boyfriend, and Punch can't help but point out how brazen Adonis is. He left without so much as a thank you, and left Daroka there all on her own. Punch thinks that she made the right decision by breaking up with him. Daroka can see something in Adonis that no one else can though, and she knows that he is kind. We then see Adonis all alone, as he thinks about everything Daroka told him. She has made a serious impression on our cold-hearted protagonist, with all her advice, but he hates it. Just then, he sees that someone has come after him, and he wonders if he made the tranquilizer too weak. He then suspects that it might be someone from the Rydia Empire. It doesn't matter who it is though, so he prepares for a fight and declares that he will end the life of anyone who gets in his way. Back in the Wastelands, Daroka is stunned when Mr. Punch reveals that he knew that Adonis was the witch's apprentice all along. Daroka tries to deny it, but it's no use. Mr. Punch says that Adonis is a completely different man now and has a memory from his past. He was dying in the desert when Chloe the Ice Witch and her young apprentice saved him. Mr. Punch explains that the greatest happiness a man can know is having something worth fighting against the entire world for. This guy is the wisest biker you will ever see, and he explains that you will never settle an argument over whether or not revenge is wrong. Adonis has chosen revenge, and even if it leads to his death, that is his choice. He wonders what Daroka plans to do, and she explains that she doesn't want anyone else to die because she failed to protect Anna and the others. Daroka refuses to let Adonis die, so Mr. Punch wonders what she is still doing here talking to him. We then see that the one coming after Adonis is Daroka, and he wonders if she is trying to end his life. Daroka promises to not get in his way, and has to let her travel with him. Adonis is shocked as Daroka explains that she gave it some thought, and thinks that Adonis does need her. It's dangerous to travel alone, and good company makes traveling seem quicker. She thinks they would both benefit, but Adonis just wonders why she didn't stop. He can't believe what a noisy girl she is, and goes after her. This anime finally has a light-hearted moment, as Adonis chases after the out-of-control Daroka. Mr. Punch just hopes that Adonis won't make Daroka cry, and wishes luck to Chloe's beloved apprentice. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.